Yo, 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 Soup Squad! It's your boy Nimbo Soup again. If you're already familiar with me or my channel at all, you'll know how much I encourage having fun in this game versus committing yourself entirely to the grind. One way I like to go about doing that is by taking a step back and playing some props. For now, I thought I would put together a collection of some thoughts I have on the key differences between props and jets, at least in my opinion, to help you try to figure out what might be more fun for you. I'll highlight some differences in gameplay, tactics, armament, maneuverability, and ultimately, enjoyment. Of course, that last one is a little bit more personal, but I'll leave that open for discussion in the comments. If you're brand new to jets, maybe you just got your very first early jet, first of all, congratulations, I remember that feeling like it was yesterday. Second, I highly recommend checking out my early jet guide if you're looking for more advice. This video here is going to be highly general and more so designed to get you to do your own thinking. Tough sell on that one, I know, trust me. Quick little side note here, I've been focusing really hard on flying and working in real life recently. That's been going great. If you're still here watching and supporting the videos, even though I never post, from the bottom of my heart, thank you. You guys are the reason I still post whenever I can. I know that's been inconsistent to say the least, but I'm a busy guy, what can I say? Anyways, not a barista, no more yappuccinos. Let's get into the video. The numero uno primary difference between props and jets is, drumroll please, you guessed it, speed. Literally everything happens faster in jets than it does in props. You name it, and a jet probably does it faster. Might be hard to wrap your brain around. From the simple stuff, like moving faster, to more complex ideas, such as having less time on target given that your closing rate is probably higher. There's honestly a ton of principles surrounding having higher speeds that I could go further into breaking down here, but for now I'm just going to keep it relatively simple. Sometime in the future, given my inconsistent uploads, I do plan on eventually making a video breaking down aerodynamic principles in real life and how they sort of apply to War Thunder. Honestly though, to be fair, I've been somewhat surprised at how much learning flying in real life has helped my understanding of the game. Anyways, that's besides the point. The main thing I want to talk about regarding speed is how it changes your engagements. Unless you're just lucky, most of the time you're not going to be dogfighting in jets. Now early jets, yeah, it can be less rare to have dogfights, but even still, when other enemies can come across the map at near Mach speeds, it's somewhat difficult to stay in a 1 versus 1. Don't even get me started on freaking radar missiles sniping you from 20 miles away. Point is, most of your engagements are not going to be dogfights in jets. Instead, you'll be booming and zooming. But try not to think of it in a traditional sense, like diving down on your enemy from above. Since your speeds can be so high, you really don't even need to be above them. Only try to be as much faster than them as you can be. Now, climbing is a good way to guarantee this, but again, with missiles, not always a great idea. As long as you're faster than the enemy, you have the advantage. Scaling that advantage more, the more speed you have over them. Pretty much everything about jets comes back to speed if you haven't noticed, almost in the same way that most things regarding props comes back to energy. That's why altitude is more important in props, because it's a bank of extra speed that you can cache in the future. When you're in a jet that can zoom climb to 6,000 meters in 30 seconds, it doesn't really matter as much. By now I've done a few videos going over the difference between speed and energy, so if you're still confused, I highly recommend going and checking out some of those. Something else I should mention in this section, 16 versus 16 matches are just way too large for top tier jets. The speeds are too high and it's pretty much impossible to control your own fate most of the time. Missiles do play into that a lot, which I'll talk more about later. It's basically like playing arcade. It's not very fun in my opinion. Anyways, to wrap things up here, things in jets simply happen quicker. It's a more precise, calculated style of gameplay, if you will. Props are also calculated in the sense that you have to know how to win dogfights, but it's a little bit more up close and personal. In the last section, we talked a bit about how in jets you should go fast, and in props you should dogfight, but let's go into some more detail on that. Naturally, your tactics are highly dependent on what plane you're flying, regardless of if it's a prop or a jet, but in my opinion it's not unfair at all to say that in jets you should try to keep your speed as high as possible at all times, and you'll most likely be just fine. Of course, you also want to keep high speeds when you're flying a prop as much as you can, but it's a lot easier to cash in on your potential energy in a prop, aka the altitude you have, by pointing your nose down and building up speed, than it is in a jet, so it's not as important to keep your speed super high at all times, as long as you also have some altitude to go along with it. You also tend to have more options in a prop of what you can do with the speed you have. For example, you can bait your opponent into a turn fight, and you can exchange your higher speed for a faster turn rate. You could even use it to energy trap your opponent in the vertical, or you could keep booming and zooming them. Point is, it's a little bit less limited to the keep the speed high so I don't get third-partied than jets are, and that's a big part of why I tend to enjoy props more. You can throw your plane around in a dogfight for a bit before you have to start worrying about the entire horde of other enemies. I have some other videos on tactics, such as energy fighting and booming and zooming, if you're interested in a further breakdown of those. I'll make one on turn fighting eventually, but I think that's pretty straightforward. Something else that deserves to be pointed out in this section, but we'll talk more about in the armament section coming up, is missiles. Obviously, missiles almost entirely alter how you should be playing jets. Once you start reaching tiers with the good missiles, your tactic is pretty much going to be avoiding being targeted in the first place, and once you are, try to fly away. Things tend to snowball quickly at jet speeds, and once you're in danger from one missile or one enemy, you're probably going to be too busy to notice that you're vulnerable to somebody else. At least if you're anything like I am. Something that I probably should but never really explicitly think about is how much time I spend on target. I tend to just try to get as close as possible to my enemies and let the freaking guns rip. But depending on what you're flying, you might want to adjust your tactics accordingly. In theory, the more effective your guns are, the less time on target you need. Sometimes this game is a little bit of a hit simulator, but it's gotten better over the years. In general, jets, especially the ones from later eras, have more effective guns, meaning you need less time on target. This makes it a little bit easier to use the boom and zoom playstyle, since just a quick burst of your guns is often going to be enough to deal with the enemy. If not killing them, then at least damaging them critically and making them RTB and getting them out of the fight. In props, you generally have earlier model, less effective guns, meaning that, again, in theory, you need more time on target. That's all fine and dandy, it makes sense, but applicability-wise, going back into the speeds of everything, you can get more time on target per attack in general in a prop than you can in a jet, because you have lower closing speeds. The most unfortunate planes in my eyes are the ones that go super fast for their tier, but they have really bad armaments and can't really capitalize on it. In the end, the way I see it, I'm going to scramble your brain here, it all tends to balance out. In other words, I don't really see gun armament as a reason to play either props or jets. If you'll notice there, quite importantly though, I said gun armament. Missiles are an entirely different story. Maybe you're a fan, but I personally am not. You're launching an AIM-9B at me, whatever, but when I get into a top tier game and I either have to be scared of hitting the ground or randomly getting sniped by a missile and there's no other option, I'm not having very much fun. Again, this would be better, I think, with less than 16v16 matches or some other changes I don't care to brainstorm because I'm not a game developer. Although I would love to hear your comments about it down below. It's certainly good to reach tiers with missiles, see how you like them for yourself, and make your decision on what to play for fun accordingly. Maybe you enjoy the more arcadey aspects, in my eyes at least, of Missile Thunder. Power to you. Which leads me nicely into our next segment here. Like with just about anything in this world, experimenting and forming your own opinion is going to do you quite nicely when it comes to playing for fun in this game. I'm not going to sit here and tell you what you would and you would not have fun playing because, first of all, I don't know you, second of all, it would take too long. Although I do think it would be helpful for some of you guys at least for me to go over my preference for props and the reason behind it, so let's do that. Of course, I already told you most of the reasons throughout the video, but I'll bundle them up nicely for you here. Number one is the tactics. I thoroughly enjoy testing my control over my own plane in a 1 versus 1 fight, and like we already established, you're a lot more likely to be dogfighting in props than you are in jets, because you have the ability to not get instantly third-partied. Obviously, you've got jets like the BI and the 163 or whatever other premium you want to name here that can easily dogfight, but A, we're talking generally here, and B, you're still more likely to get third-partied in jets than you are in props because of the speeds. Second, I'll put it blatantly, there's no missiles, especially the good ones. They basically entirely change the gameplay mechanics of their BRs, and I just don't find it as fun. Last, props are more methodical, and you might disagree with me here, but hear me out. Again, this goes back into tactics, but I personally find it a lot more enjoyable to use my plane's strengths in performance, or advantageous positioning, or whatever else it might be, to eventually come out on top over an enemy. Hey yo. For example, energy trapping is probably my favorite way in the game to shoot down enemies. In jets, a lot of the time it's more of, let me zoom around the map as fast as possible, try not to make myself a target, and pick off people that are unaware. It just seems to me there's a lot more to props than just zooming around the map like you do in jets. At least there can be if you make it. Remember, I'm talking in general here, don't get too pissed off. There's a whole bunch more than just the super obvious differences when it comes to flying jets versus props in War Thunder. But remember, the point of this video was to keep things fairly general to allow you to do your own experimenting and thinking to find out for yourself what you enjoyed the most. I personally enjoy props more, because the reasons we talked about that I'm not going to go into again, but maybe you don't. Who knows? Or cares? Go fly what you like and have fun doing it. Thanks for watching, everyone. I hope this video helped you out in some way. I'm super happy to be releasing another video. Although, even in my hiatus, I'm always around, so if you ever got a question or concern or want to see how I'm doing or something, I don't know, feel free to hit me up on Discord or leave me a comment or whatever, and I'll probably see it pretty quick. Anyways, enough soft crap. Let's end out the video, if I can remember how to do it. This is your boy Nimbo Soup. Nimbo signing out. Peace out, fellas. See you next year. I had to do it to him, I'm sorry.